The Holy Trinity of Crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. Introduction. Civilization has always depended on a handful of invisible protocols that bind human beings together. Long before skyscrapers or stock markets, societies organized themselves around money, law, and language, the untouchables of coordination. These three protocols are the bedrock of trust, order, and meaning. They allow strangers to trade, communities to govern, and ideas to travel across generations. In the 21st century, these ancient foundations are being rebuilt on new terrain, the blockchain. What was once implicit in the customs of tribes, written in the codes of empires, and enforced by the courts of nations, is now migrating into programmable, decentralized networks. Out of this migration emerges a trinity of chains: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, each embodying one of these fundamental functions. Bitcoin has claimed money with unshakable conviction, positioning itself as the incorruptible store of value, digital gold that admits no rival. Ethereum has evolved into the layer of law, a notary and governance engine where contracts, DAOs, and institutions take root. Solana has emerged as the language of coordination, the fast and composable agora of goods, ideas, and culture, where markets, payments, and social chatter converge. Taken together, these three chains represent more than competing technologies. They form a division of labor that mirrors civilization's oldest architecture. Each chain is distinct. Each has its own identity and mission, and yet they are interdependent. This is the holy trinity of crypto. Not three rivals battling for supremacy, but three protocols mapping civilization's untouchables onto a digital substrate. Bitcoin as money, the conviction layer. Money is civilization's most scalable trust protocol. It allows strangers to coordinate without knowing each other, to exchange labor for resources, and to store value across time. But money only works when it is scarce, consistent, and incorruptible. Every society that has forgotten this principle has collapsed into inflation, debasement, or barter. Bitcoin emerged in 2009 as the first monetary protocol that could not be altered by decree. With a fixed supply of 21 million coins, secured by proof of work, and immune to central manipulation, Bitcoin has steadily claimed the mantle of digital money. Its narrative is simple, and its conviction unshakable. There is no second best. What gives Bitcoin its resilience is not just technology, but a cultural strategy of embrace and neutralize. Critics have attacked Bitcoin for over a decade with the same arguments, and each time, the network has turned the criticism into strength. Energy FUD, Greenpeace once launched a campaign called the Skull of Satoshi, warning that Bitcoin's proof of work would boil the oceans. But miners simply pointed to the economics. Bitcoin mining gravitates to the cheapest energy sources, which increasingly means stranded hydro, wind, solar, or flare gas that would otherwise be wasted. Far from boiling oceans, Bitcoin has become a buyer of last resort for clean energy, incentivizing greener grids. The critique collapsed under its own weight. Crime FUD. From Silk Road to darknet markets, Bitcoin was branded the currency of criminals. Yet the same transparency that makes Bitcoin censorship-resistant also makes it traceable. Today, less than 1% of Bitcoin activity is linked to illicit use, far lower than cash. Law enforcement now prefers criminals use Bitcoin because it leaves a permanent trail. Volatility FUD. Critics sneer that Bitcoin is too volatile to serve as money, but volatility is the adolescence of every monetary good. Gold, too, had centuries of price swings before stabilizing as money. Bitcoin's fixed supply ensures that as adoption grows, volatility dampens. Long-term holders benefit, and the protocol remains intact. Each critique was supposed to be fatal. Instead, each became a proof point. This is Bitcoin's unique strength. Criticism does not destabilize it, it forges it. Every attack that fails leaves Bitcoin stronger and its narrative more secure. Bitcoin is not fast, nor is it programmable, nor is it designed for cultural chatter. It does not need to be. Bitcoin's job is to hold the line, to remain the hard money anchor in a digital age, the incorruptible base layer upon which everything else can be built. Ethereum as law, the institutional layer. If Bitcoin is money, then Ethereum has grown into the architecture of law. Not law in the sense of national legislatures or courtrooms, but law in the deeper sense, the rules and constraints that govern interaction. Ethereum was the first blockchain to move beyond simple payments, offering a programmable environment where contracts could enforce themselves without courts, intermediaries, or trust. From this foundation, an entire legal economic ecosystem has emerged. DeFi protocols like Aave, Compound, and Maker formalize borrowing, lending, and collateralization. These are digital contracts that replicate banking functions in open code. DAOs act as corporate charters and governance bodies, with treasuries, rules, and members bound by smart contracts. NFTs provide provenance and ownership frameworks, unique, enforceable, and transferable property deeds for the digital world. Stablecoins and real-world assets increasingly use Ethereum as their legal anchor, giving token holders direct claims on treasuries, bonds, or commodities without passing through banks. Ethereum's moat lies in credibility and liquidity gravity. Institutions like BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, and JP Morgan have chosen Ethereum for their first tokenization pilots, not because it is the fastest chain, but because it is the most legitimate. Regulators, developers, and lawyers alike see Ethereum as the jurisdiction of record, the Delaware of crypto. This legal gravity also explains Ethereum's deliberate pace. Block space is costly, transactions can be slow, and its scaling model, rollups and layer 2s, fragments activity. But in law, slowness can be a feature, not a bug. Courts are slow by design. Legal filings are expensive to deter frivolous claims. Ethereum mirrors this rhythm. The chain where serious rules are codified, disputes are arbitrated, and institutional trust is anchored. The result is a clear division of labor. Ethereum may not win the payments game. It may not capture the cultural chatter or composability of Solana. But as the notary and court of crypto civilization, Ethereum does not need to. Its role is to write the contracts, hold the charters, and enforce the rules. If Bitcoin is conviction and Solana is chatter, Ethereum is constraint, the layer that makes binding agreements possible. In a digital world without borders, Ethereum becomes the courthouse of last resort. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Solana as language, the derivative and communication layer. If Bitcoin is money and Ethereum is law, then Solana has become the layer of language, the agora where meaning, markets, and culture converge. In ancient Greece, the agora was the central square, a place where citizens traded goods, debated ideas, and shared news. It was at once a marketplace, a parliament, and a social network. Solana embodies that same spirit in digital form. Solana's defining traits, speed, scale, and composability make it the natural home for chatter and trade. Where Ethereum fragments activity across layer 2s and sidechains, Solana keeps everything in a single global state, allowing apps, tokens, and markets to interact seamlessly. This composability is what makes it the derivative engine of the crypto economy. Derivatives of hard money. Solana already hosts wrapped Bitcoin and tokenized gold, making hard money liquid and tradable at Solana speed. In effect, Solana acts as a payments and derivative layer for Bitcoin itself. Derivatives of real-world assets. Assets tokenized on Ethereum, treasuries, bonds, commodities, can spawn synthetics on Solana for 24/7 trading and price discovery. Exchange tokens, BNB, Uni, CRO, and others can issue Solana program library versions for tighter spreads, faster buyback and burn execution, and deeper liquidity. DAO and DeFi tokens. Governance tokens and revenue-sharing mechanisms find livelier markets on Solana, where execution is faster and costs are negligible. But Solana is not just about finance. Because it is cheap and fast enough for everyday use, it also becomes the language layer of culture and communication. Stablecoins flow seamlessly on Solana, enabling payments at scale. Social protocols and NFT ecosystems thrive on Solana's speed and low cost, where memes and digital identities spread like wildfire. Mobile integration through the Saga and Seeker phones ties Solana directly into consumer hardware, positioning it as the Visa, MasterCard, and WhatsApp of the blockchain age. FireDancer, the new validator client, promises to supercharge performance even further. Lower latency, higher throughput, and industrial-grade resilience. This makes Solana more than a fast chain. It is the digital agora, a marketplace of goods such as tokenized assets and payments, a marketplace of ideas such as NFTs, memes, and social chatter, a marketplace of culture such as identity, messaging, and coordination. Where Bitcoin offers conviction and Ethereum offers rules, Solana offers flow, It is the bloodstream of the ecosystem, carrying prices, memes, and payments through a single composable state. The division of labor, peace in the valley. For years, the crypto world has framed itself as a zero-sum competition, every chain fighting for the number one spot. But civilization does not function that way. Money, law, and language are not rivals, they are complements. Each serves a distinct purpose, and together they make society possible. The same is true for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Their coexistence is not a compromise, it is a necessity. Each chain has found its natural domain. Bitcoin as money, the conviction layer. Base store of value, the incorruptible hard anchor. Defended by narrative resilience, there is no second best. Ethereum as law, the institutional layer. Notary and court of crypto. Anchors real-world assets, DAOs, governance systems, and provenance. Secures legitimacy through first-mover advantage and institutional bridges. Solana as language, the derivative and communication layer. Fast, composable market square for goods, ideas, and culture. The natural home for derivatives, stablecoins, exchange tokens, and payments. Expands the ecosystem into real-time chatter and consumer adoption. The flow between them is already visible. Anchor, Bitcoin as hard money, Ethereum as the notary. Issue, real-world assets, stablecoins, and NFTs begin life on Ethereum for credibility. Derive, Solana program library tokens, synthetics, and derivatives flourish on Solana for speed and liquidity. Feedback, proofs and settlements flow back into Ethereum for governance, while treasuries rebalance into Bitcoin as reserve. This is not rivalry, it is division of labor. Each chain has its own identity, its own mission, and its own moat. Together, they mirror Hayek's untouchables, money, law, and language, reconstituted on a digital substrate. There is, at last, peace in the valley. Conclusion. Civilization has always rested on invisible architectures. Money, law, and language are not luxuries. They are the protocols without which no society can function. Each is untouchable in its own domain, and each is indispensable to the others. In the digital age, these pillars are being reforged. Bitcoin secures money, offering incorruptible conviction in a world drowning in inflation and debt. Ethereum codifies law, anchoring contracts, governance, and provenance on an open ledger of rules. Solana becomes language, the living agora where markets, payments, and culture flow in real time. Together, they form a holy trinity of crypto, not rivals vying for supremacy, but complements enacting civilization's oldest functions on new rails. Money anchors value, law encodes trust, and language carries meaning. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana mirror this architecture, proving that identity and narrative are not just marketing slogans. They are the coordinates of survival. Civilization advances when its foundations are clear. By embracing their true roles, these three chains can coexist not in conflict, but in harmony. A division of labor that turns chaos into order, chatter into meaning, and code into civilization itself.